Well, I'm sure there'll be a few more people dropping in, but let's open the call. So welcome everybody to our weekly drone date, as I've affectionately started calling our fireside chats. So let me just let Agatha in. My name is Kim James. I'm the director of a company called Aerial Works, but I have the pleasure of hosting our fireside chat tonight for Louise Jupp. And this is our Women in Drones Africa weekly friendly chat. We meet with other women in the African drone industry. Of course, we have lots of men, as we were just saying earlier on. And we meet, we network, we support, we share. And I wanted to take the opportunity. Louise and I were chatting the other day, and we literally can think of an actual connection, an action, or some amazing thing that's come out of every single one of our chats every week. So and the fact that we have colleagues from the US and people joining us from all over Africa and all over the world just means that that networking is just so effective. So before we get to our guest speaker, who I am super excited about introducing, I just wanted to take the opportunity okay, wow, let me just not get distracted. I just want to make sure that I'm letting everybody in here. Is there anyone who's new, who wants to introduce themselves, who we haven't seen? Hi, Kim. Hi, Lumka.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
Hi. Oh my gosh, you look so cool. What was that Superwoman picture we just saw?
I'm on my way to Ohio to see my kids, so we're just cruising in the car, taking a little break from drones.
How cool is this? That technology just enables us to take these calls and do these calls from anywhere in the world and anywhere, actually. So I love it. Absolutely love it. Sharon's joining as well. Let me just let her in, and then I'm going to introduce. Okay. Hi, Sharon. Okay, so I have the absolute pleasure of introducing our guest speaker tonight. Our guest speakers are always cool, and I'm always excited when I'm hosting. But tonight is special because this is actually a US-based drone professional, and I'll introduce her in a second, but she's a fellow South African. So we were just chatting earlier on how small the world is and how nice it is to actually, feel so close to someone, and yet, we're a million miles apart. So Susan Minne is a public safety drone pilot with Homeland Security and emergency management in Cedar Park, Texas. And she's a UAS instructor for the Austin Community College Public Safety Training Center. She's also the Women in Drones 2020 Women to Watch in UAS Global Award honoree in the public safety category. And this is the best. When I was doing my research for this and I saw this, I was like, she is the coolest person I know. Susan assists with search and rescue, SWAT, fire scenes, and a whole lot of other types of missions. She also is a technical writer by trade. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that I would just be reading off, but I really want to just take this opportunity to say, welcome, Susan. And I hope I did you justice, because I'm sure I could read another 5 minutes of all your accolades and all the cool things you do. But let me hand over to you and give you the floor to continue introducing yourself and sharing what you do.
Well, thank you so much. That's an amazing introduction. And I am so thrilled to be talking to fellow South Africans as well as other people in other parts of the world. I was just saying that normally when I'm in training classes, I do a lot of community training here. And I have to start off by saying, if I say something you don't understand, please just put your hand up and ask. And at least I don't really need to do it with this crowd because you'll all understand my accent and my slang that I use every now and again. So that's great. Um, Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate being able to share. I'm so passionate about public safety, drone flying, and what we do. And anytime I get a chance to just share with people everything we get up to, I take that opportunity. So I got involved with drones about 3 years ago. Our city, I've been involved with emergency management for about 6 years. I teach community emergency preparedness classes. But about 3 years ago, our city decided to get a drone program for public safety and all our first responders. And so the emergency manager that I work with went on a course and he started training, and he asked me to be his visual observer while he was training. And I met with him, and he's doing his little squares, as you know, everyone starts out with squares. And I just, it took about one lesson, and I decided it would be so much better if I could help him much more if I could try and fly as well. And it took, I don't know, a week or two before I had my own drone and I was flying alongside of him, and that's how we launched the program. And so I've been flying ever since. We have tons of opportunities. Basically, we'll fly anything we're asked to fly for the city. So it's not only public safety, we fly for the city. We do their commercial shoots that they need to do with, how city budgets are being spent, and that will fly over building projects and that, because we find that every opportunity gives us a different way of practicing. So even just flying, taking video footage for their city videos, that gives us a different, way to practice. To give you an idea of some of the ways that we use public safety flights, we fly for large events. So we haven't had a lot of those lately with COVID, but before COVID hit, we would fly for things like we'd have a Independence Day, 4th of July celebration, and the city hosts it in one of the big parks. And what we would do is we would actually fly a predetermined flight first, a mapped flight, and get a picture of the stadium or the park that we were using, and we print it out on a huge printer and put it in our mobile command center. And so what that does for us is if we have an emergency during the event, we have an up-to-date picture. Rather than just using Google, we have a picture of where all the tents are and where everything's located, and we can quickly help people, with routes out of the area. And then on those as well, we help with, finding lost kids or sometimes finding lost parents, depending how that goes. Other ways we help, we do accident reconstruction. We found that's incredibly efficient with drones, because what would happen is if you have an accident and police have to go out and take measurements and reconstruct the whole thing, that can take several hours to several days. And it's really dangerous for people that are involved, because you have to block off the road, so traffic's going around you and you've got people in the road doing this. And basically what takes hours to days with police, we can send up with the right software, and you can take the pictures and get the data done in just, an hour or less. And it saves, because you have the road blocked off for less time. You're not taking up you're not putting people in danger as much. So we use that a lot. Our police actually use that a lot, and that's been extremely efficient and very life-saving. Search and rescue is one of my main ones that we go out. We probably go out 2 or 3 times a month on that. We recently had one where we were searching for 2 8-year-old boys. They'd gone missing straight after school. They'd been missing for 5 hours. And we went up and looked, and the way we do it is we'll work with fire. So our fire goes out and helps in search with police, and we'll work with them, and we'll do aerial, and we'll kind of pan ahead of them. And then if there's anything of interest, we'll direct them to that to go and see. So we were told that the boys had a fort they were building in the middle of these kind of wooded area, and we were able to fly over and locate the fort, and then use our drone and position over it so that we could direct first responders on the ground to go and check that out. They were not there, unfortunately, but eventually, about an hour and a half of searching, our drone team was actually the ones that found one of the boys, and we were able to direct the police there, and all ended well. So that was great. It's always nice when things end well. We've done SWAT aerial support. We've been at a hostage situation where you'll have the house that's in the middle of a suburban area maybe, and what we'll do is we'll fly multi-drone missions. So for that one, we had 5 drones up at a time. So we had 1 drone on each side of the house, and then we had 1 top down. And then you feed it into software so that your mobile command can actually see pictures of what every drone is seeing, and you can direct them around. And that one we were flying for, that one also, it was about an 18-hour episode, also finished, good story, good ending. We were able to really utilize the airboss or traffic control type idea with setting up, what height you take off to and what height you go out at. And then as you come back, you communicate with the next pilot so that you're coming back at a certain height and they're going out at a certain height. So just keeping the skies safe. I was just mentioning before we started the meeting, that was one time where we had a hobbyist. We had all 5 of our drones up, and a hobbyist flew straight into our area and tried to get some pictures and that right in the middle of it. So hobbyist pilots are a lot of problem when they don't follow the rules. We have a lot of issues with that. What else? Some other ways that we do it, we help our fire department with safety building inspections, and that helps them either places they can't get into or places that will take them ages to do. One of the more tricky ones that we did was we had a school auditorium where they do, theater production. And so above the stage is all the wires and cabling and everything. And they'd installed some new sprinkler systems. And there was a sprinkler right down the other end of the hall with all these cables and wires. And so we got one of our Minnes and we set it out. Now you can imagine what your GPS does with all cables and stuff, and there was a curved stage as well, so that the wind shear would push it away. So we would go about 10 centimeters and pause, go a little more and pause, go a little more, and we eventually got to where the sprinkler was, and we could show the fire department what they needed to see without them getting getting into a dangerous situation. So, everything we're doing is about efficiency, about doing things quicker, but mostly about just trying to prevent injury and death for people that would have to do that normally by themselves. One of the other things with fire department, we had a lightning strike on a local apartment, and it hit the top of the building and bent one of the one of the pipes on top, and there was still lightning in the general area, and the fire department needed to go up and check the roof to see if there were still any hot spots. But I don't know if you know, with fire departments, with those ladders that they put up, those are pretty much lightning magnets. And so it's pretty dangerous to have a fireman go up on those ladders and check roof. And so we were able to take our thermal. We took the Matrice 300 with the thermal camera up, and we could, within 2 minutes, we could do a scan of the roof and confirm that there were no more hotspots. So just saved everyone's, again, life-saving efforts. The equipment that we use, just to go through that just a little bit, we have the Matrice 300. We use the Zenmoose H20T camera. So that's got a thermal on. It's got the zoom, the laser rangefinder. Laser rangefinder is great because you can pinpoint something you found, and you can literally feed GPS coordinates down to your ground crew so they can put it into their equipment and go straight to where you're at. What we'll often run is we'll run the thermal and the regular camera side by side. So we'll do a split screen, and that gives us usually the best view on finding things. What else do we have? We have a few Mavic 2 Enterprise with the ones that have the spotlight on speaker or beacon. So we've used the spotlight once or twice. Those Enterprise are really great. Can fly them for about 22, 23 minutes, depending what you're doing. And then our Minne, we have Minne 2 as well, and those will do a lot of indoor. So we practice a lot for SWAT scenarios in a regular house, really. It's a blackout house that fire uses. And so we practice flying in the windows and through all the hallways and that, because if you want to go and see if a suspect's in the house, instead of sending a person in again, you just send one of the drones in and you can see what you need to find. So that's an overview. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions or anything, or I can give any other information you'd like.
I have many questions, but let's see if there's anyone from the group. Does anyone have any immediate questions? This is so amazing. I love what you do. my comment, and then, well, I'll tell you a bit of a story. And because you were saying that, most all those examples you used, Susan, were good endings basically for search. So we were on a mission in December, doing security work on this massive game farm, and the next door farm actually put out like a Facebook message on some or other Facebook forum. We happened to see it, and they were like, "We've got this prized possession miniature dog thing that was missing. Can't remember. It was like a miniature terrier or something. Anyway, prized family pet, and it's missing, and they're reaching out for drone pilots." So we said, well, we're right next door. And they said, we'll pay you. And we said, no, like, we'll just do it, Anyway, we searched for this dog for 3 days. We did not find, we found every other animal. This woman was distraught. And so we were so distraught not having found this dog. And everyone was saying to us, except for their family, it's probably been eaten by a jackal, or it's fallen down, a hole or something. But I could just imagine what it must be like not finding a human that you're searching for. If we felt like that, not finding an animal, how do you deal with that when you've, done a search and it actually comes up with nothing?
Yeah, I like to share the happy stories because that's much more fun. We've definitely had our share of that. We've had people, we've had to go and search for people that are suicidal. We had one near Christmas that was pretty heartbreaking. And then, I guess, you just deal with it. You have chaplains and pastors that are on site with the family to help us with that. But it is, you take it so personally because, even looking for children or adults, we've had 2 or 3 that we haven't been able to find. And I think I've had 2 in the last 6 months that were not a happy ending. And it is, you take it very personally. It's just, you have to walk away from it at some point, and you have to remember, like all first responders, everyone's encouraged to go and talk to someone if you need to. So you really do want to kind of have a debrief, and then also debrief from a technical perspective. So if it doesn't end well, it's not only the emotional side of, oh my gosh, we didn't find the person, but okay, is there anything we could have done differently? Is there anything we could have done better? Could we have searched a different, more efficient way? So each whether it's a good or bad outcome, we always try and learn, like, could we have done it better or faster or more efficiently or anything like that?
Absolutely. Debbie has a question for you. She has her hand up. Go ahead, Debbie.
Thanks very much. So I've actually got 2 questions for you related to the search initiatives. One, if you're searching over water areas, do you put any kind of polarizing filter onto the cameras to cut out the glare on the water, because it's quite hard to see into water? And then the second question for searchers is, if you fly a grid pattern and then mosaic the images back together so that someone back in the office can spend time searching the area, the software that we've used, which was Pix4D Mapper, if someone moves, when you stitch those images together, the person effectively gets removed out of the photograph or the mosaic photograph. So how do you mosaic images together to use in your search?
So I'll do your questions backwards. We don't so we've never had a search where we've sent it back. What we do is we do a live search. So we project our image that we're flying onto external monitors, and we usually have a team of people that are viewing those live as we're searching. So we don't tend to do a stitch and send it back for a delayed search at all. We do, Pix4D is one of the more common software packages to use, but there are certain issues with it, like you've mentioned, with people kind of vanishing where they should have been. But no, all of ours are live searches. And then going back to your water one, we don't use a filter on it. I do know what you're talking about with the issue with the glare. We normally try and just adjust the angle that we're searching at. So if we're searching, north-south, we'll try east-west if that gives us a better view. And then also using the thermal helps a lot. So we'll have it again on the split screen with the regular camera and the thermal, but we don't tend to use any filter. The one with water, you always have to be careful. We tend to fly a little higher than we would on other areas, depending how deep the water is and depending what we're looking for, because you can't, your drone can't find ground, so it doesn't know how high it is. So you have to be careful of your visual when you're flying over water. Does that help?
That's fantastic. Thanks very much.
Sure.
Susan, my question to you is about night missions, and specifically where we have these amazing functionalities now, and specifically with your laser rangefinder. That doesn't work at night though, does it?
No, you do have to be able to see the actual, it doesn't work at night. No, you have to be able to see the object. So we'll do a night. Yeah, night's definitely much harder. So the few things we do is, depending on the situation, we have some police, I mean, you can buy them anywhere. It's just red and blue flashing, but lights that will actually strap onto the matrice, and they flash, and that actually helps your visual observer or you keep track of where the aircraft is, because once it goes up, it just vanishes. And so that's really much more helpful. But the other thing we'll do is, for night, instead of using the laser rangefinder with those flashing lights, we'll again do where as you find an object, we'll fly so that our camera is pointing 90 degrees down. And then with the flashing lights, we can just direct ground crew to look at our flashing lights and walk towards that point. So that's really how we do it.
It's so interesting you say that, because you know how when you kind of review your own operations, and always, I'm sure there are better ways to do this. You know, I'm sure we are just so rudimentary in how we're doing this, and then validating something. So it's interesting. You know, we had on the weekend on one of our sites, we actually had a drone mission deployed from a ground motion sensor, and so drone got deployed, and they did a pursuit, and of course now the ground, and it's dark, it's in the middle of nowhere. So we've taught the team, because that's a site where we use a Matrice 210. And yeah, we've taught the team, as soon as you get over the subject, point the camera down and just hover over it. And so that's how they vectored the team in. But the team got lost at some point. And so they actually, you can see with a thermal, they literally leave the suspect. They kind of, you know, obviously took note. We debriefed with him after, lifted the camera up, went up the road to see how far the ground crew were, and then came back so that they could radio in to say, okay, you're on the right path. But of course you could have lost the suspect, right?
Right.
But I'm glad to hear that you would do the same.
Oh yeah, I mean, sometimes you do the best you can, you know, with what you have. So yeah, I think sounds like they did an excellent job. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it worked, and they had an arrest. So, you know, that's all we're worried about, you know. That's
all that matters, as long as you got to the end result. Yeah. Now we had one the funniest search and rescue. Well, we've had a few of them, but one of the funniest was, we were searching for, I think it was an 11-year-old boy. It was about 11 o'clock at night, so it was pitch dark, and we got to the site and we were given our search grid. So they'd asked us to drive a little way to a park and park there and set up. And so we just drove there, and we were literally setting up our zone to take off. And this kid walked straight through our zone. So we stopped and we're like, hey, what's your name? And it happened to be the kid that we were looking for. So we joked that we were so good, we didn't even need to take off when we found him. So, you know, but no, I mean, those kind of stories are pretty fun. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Tell me though, with your flying into buildings, because that's an interesting one, right? Because a lot of the new drones have got collision avoidance. So, you know, flying through a smaller opening, and then obviously losing GPS, you know, oftentimes they would then just do weird stuff. So how do you deal with that?
So we turn off all the object avoidance. It's the only way you can do it. I mean, you can't even get through the front door with it on. And basically, I mean, the nuts and bolts is that is just practice, practice, practice. I mean, you have to know your aircraft. You have to know that when a wall looks this far in front of you, that's visually how far in front it is and stuff. And so like I said, we're very fortunate. We have a whole fire training area that the fire department uses that we can go use to practice, and they have a blackout house and they have all these things. And so we get to train in there, but we turn off all the obstacle avoidance, and then GPS you just have to play with, and it's just on practice, because it'll switch on and off, and as it's doing that, so your aircraft will drift and then come back and then go up and then come. So we have one, and you get to know them as well. So one of our aircraft, I think it's the Minne, when you're going in, when it loses GPS, when it comes back again, it goes up automatically. So you always have to have your hands on the control, because you know the moment it keeps finding it, it's going to rise the moment it does. So you have to keep remembering, okay, I've got to bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. It is practice. I mean, I was practicing in the blackout house a month or two ago. It's probably my most embarrassed. Well, I don't say embarrassing, but I was embarrassed that I crashed. But I was practicing coming down some stairs, but it was really dusty. And so the props were spewing up all this dust. And I was probably about 25 centimeters above the stairs going down. And I think the dust messed with my sensors. And as I pushed down to go down the stairs, it thought I wanted to land. And of course, it tried to land on the stairs and tumbled all the way to the bottom, which I take as that's embarrassing more than anything. But it's just, you know, practice, practice, practice. So try and put yourself in different situations. The one really great tip I have for practicing without messing up your drone is you can buy those pool noodles that you use for swimming, you know, those ones in the swimming pool. You can hang them in a room, just hang them with string or something like that. And that you can use to go and fly through and fly in tight spaces, because if your props hit it, you won't have any damage to the thing or to your aircraft. So hanging pool noodles is a brilliant way to train with close quarters without worrying about damaging anything.
Very, very cool. Yeah, the training is a big thing. We train our pilots to, if something goes wrong and you can't see, because normally, you know, we're trained to watch your aircraft when it lands. So the judgment on distance to landing, obviously you can do an auto land, but the point is at night it's a bit tricky. So we teach all of them with camera down and literally FPV land, so that if you have to land somewhere in a bush or somewhere, that you're not going to, you know, land on a tree, and you can go and find, if you've got the time, depending on what the story is. So yeah, practice, 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 right?
Yeah, the other thing with that is I always emphasize with people when I'm doing my training at the college is make it a habit every single time you take off, even if you're taking off from the same location, like it's your second flight, set your return to home manually. So even if it says return to home set, I've got a habit now. The moment my aircraft's on, it's the first thing I do is go set return to home, because you see all the stories and videos and that of people going, I lost contact and my drone just took off. And the reason it took off was because they didn't set return to home for your current location. And so I've just got in a habit, before every single flight, I just push the button and go reset return to home, so that I know for sure if I lose connection, it's going to come back to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You talk about SWAT and the fact that, you know, you now help them with live feed from various angles of a house, for example. What other cool stories can you tell us about where the drone tech has just changed a scenario?
I think, I don't know, different stories on that with SWAT specifically. I think it's just being able to get visual into a situation. So for instance, the 18-hour hostage one that I was on, we were all positioned a block and a half away from it for safety reasons. So all the SWAT, all the EMS, the ambulance and all that, all positioned somewhere away. And so the suspect had a gun, and he had three of his family members in, and just the idea of being able to fly and say, hey, could I just see that window, because that's where he was shooting out of before, and to go and fly and give them a view without putting a human in that area to actually visually see and potentially get shot at. I think that's just, you know, groundbreaking, not groundbreaking new, but it's saving so many lives. You know, I mean, this guy had already shot, thankfully not killed, but shot 3 officers and wounded 3 officers. And so you don't want to send someone else out into the street if you can help it. So it's like, it's great. If I lose an aircraft, what's the big deal? It's an
Fine,
aircraft.
it's
I'll get
insured,
another
it's
one.
a
Right.
machine, yeah.
And so I think it's just the idea. I mean, you can literally go down and look in the window and make sure people are safe. You can get an idea of what position people are in the house, so that SWAT can make a plan on how they want to enter. Just all those different things. It's all just about wherever a human would need to go. Now you can put a machine in first and just, you know, have a safe situation.
Absolutely. These are such great stories. I love it. Debbie, you have another question.
Yeah, so the whole SWAT aspect is very fascinating to me, because I hadn't really thought about that. But did you use thermal cameras in that instance to see where the people were in the house?
So thermal cameras, no, but I'll tell you why. Is thermal cameras, how they show them in Hollywood and on movies, is actually not the way they really work. So when you see it in a movie, you know, I watch a lot of police drama. I love those. And when you see it where it's, okay, we're following the suspect and they're racing into the house and they shine with the drone, or they have their handheld and you can see the people running around in the house. That's actually not how thermal works. It's not possible, because what thermal does is it gives you a reading for the first surface it comes up against. So if you're pointing at a house, the first surface is the wall. So you're just going to get a heat signature from the wall. You're not going to be able to tell if there's anyone or anything behind that wall. It's the same even as a window. If I point a thermal at a window, I've actually got a demo video on YouTube about how thermal really works and debunking the Hollywood myth. So if you're interested, check it out sometime. But even if you point a thermal camera at a window where visually I can see right into the house, the thermal camera can't see that. It reflects whatever the temperature is on that actual window. So even visually you can see through, thermally you can't see through a solid surface. So you're not able to use thermal to kind of see in. Now, technology is changing. They actually are developing and starting to use a type of thermal camera. It's a different camera though, but it's still based on thermal, where you can then do that. You will be able to stand at a distance and point the camera and it can see through. But the thermal cameras, the H20 that we use and all those kind of things right now, you can't see through walls with that. So it's not very useful. What we do use though is we'll use a visual just on, so a regular camera just looking in windows and doors and trying to spot people on a visual side.
That zoom is amazing, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yeah.
Because you really don't have to bring your drone close to the subject. I mean, the subject won't even be aware of it by sound or visual, and you can just zoom right into it. It's just crazy how much of a close-up you can get.
Yeah, the H20 zoom, when we first got the aircraft and we were playing with it, it's just mind-blowing, because we put it up in the air and we were looking at horizon stuff, and we pointed it at a water tower that we knew was 5 miles away, and we could read the text on the water tower from where we were. It's just that zoom camera is just incredible. Yeah.
That's crazy. Very cool. So from a South African context, it would, it wouldn't be right to have one of these chats without mentioning regulations. I actually really want to have a chat at some point without mentioning regulations, but it's so much part of our lives here. And so we have started working with law enforcement, and specifically in the center of Johannesburg. And of course, that's just buildings, people, roads. It's crazy. So first of all, from a safety perspective, that's just mad, right? Because everything tells you do not want to fly over these unsuspecting people. But secondly, from a regulatory perspective, we have to get road agencies approval, police approval, metropolitan police approval, private property, building owners, etc., homeowners association. And so, we're working on all of that for permanent operations. But now, if you are in a scenario in the US where you get called out and it's a SWAT scenario or it's a rescue scenario, and you now have to fly over people, property, public roads, how does it work for you guys?
So first of all, I was actually in South Africa for a month, mid-March to mid-April. And so before I came, I was researching, could I bring my drone and fly? Because I wanted to show my family and, have fun. oh my gosh, your rules there are so much more severe than our rules here. So,
Yep.
and then of course I realized you can't bring foreign drones into South Africa, so I wasn't able to fly anyway. But a lot of your rules we don't have here. So, you have a much more strict setup there. But what we do when we fly is the first thing, well, if we're flying locally, we know our airspace, and all of our airspace is uncontrolled airspace in Cedar Park, so in my city. If we go out of it, then we'll look at Sky Vector or Kitty Hawk or one of the apps and just check the airspace. So that's the first thing we do, is just make sure that we've got uncontrolled airspace. If we flying at night, the FAA has just changed the rule. So it used to be that you had to get a waiver to fly at night. And now if you've taken your recurrent exam, or if you've taken the most current FAA Part 107 exam, you actually have flying at night included in that. So now, everyone can do it. So that's not a problem. So what we'll do is, if it's uncontrolled airspace, we can fly. It's not an issue. So we just fly no matter. If it's controlled, we'll normally contact the traffic control, the local, wherever the control is, and get permission. If we can't get permission, say if it's a SWAT situation, if it's like an immediate, we need to respond, need to go and do it, we have a thing called an SGI. It's a special government interest form. And even before filling out that form, there's a phone number on there, and we can literally phone and say who we are, and we're attached to first responders. This is the situation. This is what we need to do. And 99% of the time, life or death, they're going to give you a yes. Okay, go ahead and fly, because they know who we are. They know we're safe and everything. And then you fill out the form afterwards and submit it. So even if it's in a restricted airspace, restricted area, we as public safety first responders can still go and fly, and you just give them a, hey, this is it. And obviously you do your due diligence. So if you're flying right next to an airport, you contact the airport and say, hey, we've got a situation. This is where we're going to be flying. Please alert your pilots. And then we connect to the local airport radio, the CTAF, to make sure that, we're aware of incoming traffic and things like that. So we obviously do it as safely as we can, but as first responder, we can, for life and death, you can always override the rules. And then you just make a part of your reporting if you need to afterwards.
That's fab. One day is one day.
It'll get there. Yeah.
So in the case where you said you were on a mission, and a hobbyist or someone, kind of coming to check it out, just flew into your ops area, what would happen to that individual in your case?
It's really difficult at the moment. Pretty much nothing. I mean, we actually don't have a lot of power to do anything. What we do though is, most of them don't know that. And so so what we did in that situation is we launched one of our other aircraft, and we tried to find the person who was controlling it, which is difficult because they could be blocks away. But I've had a few situations. We had where we were monitoring protests in the city as well, and we had hobbyist drones, and so we would launch one of ours specifically to find the person who's doing it, and then we'd send someone in a uniform to go and just scare the heck out of them. So legally we can't do anything, but I mean, if you have someone walking, especially if we send one of our big tough, like, big dudes, walking up to him and go, hey, you need to get that thing down right now and get it out of our sight, and that, most hobbyists don't know where they stand legally, and so we can kind of scare them into, oh geez, okay, I better do what they say. So it's more scare tactic. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of recourse, and I think it's where laws haven't caught up with technology. I mean, I know there's a lot of lawsuits going on here in the States because everything from literal ground level up belongs to the FAA. It's not state owned. So air is it's federal, it's FAA. And so states are trying to bring in their own laws, and it's a problem because nationally it's like, well, you can't say I can't fly there because the FAA says I can. And so there's a lot of lawsuits coming in with who can dictate where people can and can't fly. So for instance, we could have a situation where we say you can't fly from our city park. We don't have any flying in it. All you need to do is go out on the pavement and launch from there and then fly over the park. And we actually can't do anything about that legally. So it's kind of a problem, but I think it's just laws haven't caught up with technology, really.
Yeah, I think that's the world over. We always think we're worse off here. And then when you speak to people in other countries, they're like, yep, our laws also just have to catch up, right? I guess if it was that easy, they would be doing it. So
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions, but so I wanted to kind of reiterate what you were saying right at the beginning around where, obviously pre-COVID times, big stadiums and, where big crowds of people would gather, that you do kind of pre-site inspections and gather information for the organizers and I guess maybe for safety and what have you. I love that application because it really is saving lives, right? I mean, I actually kind of came across that incident. I think it was in Germany. It was many years ago, but it was the same thing. People kind of filing in for the day of some form of festival or whatever. And some person had forgotten to open a gate that was actually a safety kind of escape gate. And they didn't watch how many people were entering, and eventually people just got crushed.
Wow.
Now, had you done a pre-inspection, you would have known that maybe that one entrance was too narrow, or the gates weren't open, or even during that time, you could have mitigated and actually prevented that, right? So I love the application of prevention and using it in safety.
Right. Yeah, we're very fortunate. So we have a mobile command unit, which is one of those big RV buses that we take to our events, and it has a plotter in it. And so we'll fly the event and then we'll download onto a computer and print out on the plotter. So we've literally got a wall size map of the event that's 15 minutes old. We put it on the wall and now we've got everything exactly where it is. Yep.
It's that real-time information that is so key with these things.
It is. Yeah.
Tell us how it's been to educate some of the public safety agencies, and where, maybe you found some challenges in kind of, getting people used to technology, maybe doing what they did before, or, have you found any challenges around threats, and maybe pushback from individuals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one thing that we've learned is you have to take it slow. And that's, we've built this over the last 3 years. And that's another reason why we'll fly anything we're asked to fly, is just to build that up with different departments and people. There's a lot on the liability side. The cities are scared of being sued. You were playing big. I mean, the biggest thing that questions we get is, oh, you're public safety, you must be playing Big Brother and spying on people, and that seems to be the biggest thing. And that's why I like to educate people. No, these are all the 20 things we do. We don't just sit there and spy on you. We have better things to do with our time. But it's our city was encouraging but slow, so we had to take it slow and steady because they were nervous. You have to be very professional, you have to follow the rules all the time, you have to come across professionally every single time you're called out. I make sure I'm dressed right, I make sure I look good. It sounds silly, but it's almost like you're going to an interview every time you're deployed, because so we, like police, were very slow to pick up on our program. They would call in Air One support, which is one of our helicopters, and we're like, you're stupid. They cost you like $1,000 an hour, and we can probably do more than they can because we can fly lower and better and whatever. And so, but they wouldn't, because they're used to it. Like you said, old habits die hard. So they would call in helicopter. And some were just totally against drones. Some people have had bad experience with hobbyists, messing up stuff for them personally or professionally. And so we've literally worked our shifts. We've worked one shift at a time because one has called us out, and we've tried really hard. And when we're out, it's sharing knowledge as well. So for instance, I always work with a partner. We go out and we fly in pairs so that we always have someone backing up each other. And we fly with what we've affectionately called our orange box that we built ourselves, and it has a monitor, an external monitor. And the person who's not flying will always take the time to educate those that are with us, the fire, police, whoever, say, hey, come and look at here. If you see this, we can do this. Or if you look here, how we can zoom in on this. Or if you look here, how we've just directed the first responders to that site. And so the whole thing is just constant education, constant professionalism, coming across well, educating them on, after the fact, oh, that fire. So if you call us for that, this is what we can do, and maybe show them a video on what we could do for it. And we found just slowly, we've started getting those calls, just, oh, this department never called us before. Okay, we got to go, even if we don't think there's a good chance of success, because we got to show them what we can do. So it's just, slowly building up trust and everything. I think building with the public as well, just taking it slow. And again, just making sure that you don't ever show off. You're never a maverick and trying to prove yourself or be, even just for kicks, the two of you've had a hard flight and you want to just like zoom across the sky. Just don't do that in front of people because they're always watching.
Well done. That's wonderful. Ella, I see your hand. Go ahead with a question.
I just wanted to know, we had a thermal drone here with us, the Enterprise Advanced, and it's so cool. So I'm telling everybody about it. Like, this thing has thermal and it's just fantastic tool to use. And then one of the clients asked, but can it see inside your house? Because what if a drone gets in the wrong hands? Then people can see where you are for the wrong reasons. And for that reason, I'm so glad that they don't have that yet. But I really wish that they do for the safety people. Really, I do.
No, I agree. But yeah, I think, I definitely think in the early, I still consider drones in the early stage, even though they've been around for years and years, because the technology is expanding so rapidly. And I think if we could see inside houses now, I think we still have a lot of work to do with the public, because I think, there's still a fairly negative connotation where public safety and where governments are concerned. There's negative for a lot of things for government, but I agree with you. It's going to be a nice thing to have, but I'm also glad that I can prove to people right now that my equipment's not capable of doing that, just so that they can never wonder if I'm watching them in their house.
I just also want to say thank you, because what you do is really inspiring. Today I was sitting here and thinking like, what if I do something like that? Then I remembered, wait, I live in the Free State. There's no high walls or stuff like that. Everything is flat, so we won't use it really here. So it's really cool how you guys do that.
No, thank you. Well, I'm sure if you connected with your local departments and local first responders, you might actually be surprised with how you could come up with programs where you could assist them. Even with helping with taking pictures with accident reconstruction and even farmland stuff. There's always things that you could be doing. After a storm, you could go and do damage assessment for them and take some photos and see if there's any downed fences for people. And you'd be surprised if you talk to, and I'd be happy to connect with you offline, and we could maybe brainstorm some ideas on how you could perhaps get involved with that.
That's really cool. Thank you. I also would like to know if you have any advice for someone who would like to try or step into this lane that you are in already. Any advice for the young people starting it?
So the biggest advice I can give is probably just to connect with your local departments, because I know, speaking for my department, and I think most don't want people from the public just trying to come on scene and try and help. So if you walk up with a drone and say, hey, can I help you with your search and rescue? Even though from a public side, it sounds like, hey, but we're trying to provide extra eyes and things. It's just that it takes such a lot to train as a team and get to know the process and speak the language. And how I was just saying, to win over the departments that you're doing a good job. And so my biggest advice for people, if they wanted to specifically get into public safety assistance, would be to either go and find a local search and rescue group. So I know we have several sort of professional, like that's all they do. They are volunteers, but you call them when you have, extremely difficult search and rescue. Go and talk to them. Do they have a drone program? Are they interested in a drone program that you could maybe help as a volunteer? Talk to your canine search and rescue. Maybe you could link up. I know we've got a program in the States somewhere where it's drones and canines. They actually work together as a search and rescue team. So my biggest advice would be to try and connect with an existing organization and either ask them if they have a program, or would they be interested in talking to you about starting a program that works together with their mission.
You say a drone program. That sounds really interesting. How can you elaborate more on that? Because as you know, drones here in South Africa is not that the drones are advanced, but the regulations are not really. We are getting there because it's such a new industry. So how would you go about using a drone program?
I think I would just start very simply. So I would start with basics. I mean, we just started basically doing search and rescue, and we didn't do anything else, and we built on that. So if I had to start a program in the city that I'm in, I would go and talk to one of the local first responder groups, police, fire. If you have if you have search and rescue, volunteer groups, and I would probably ask, talk to them about, maybe give them a demo, invite them out to you and show them how you can fly, and how you can find things in a field or something, and just start with the basics and just say, hey, this is the capability I can bring to your group. This is what I can add to what you're already doing. Are you interested in working with me? So again, I probably wouldn't start one on my own and try and send it out there. If it's more on the public safety volunteering side, I would try my best to link up with an existing group.
The information that you are giving is so informative. Thank you so much. And I think not just me, but there's a lot of people who can use it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, not a problem.
I always love Ella's questions, because she just goes and asks, and it's sometimes we're like, we wouldn't have asked that. Thank you, Ella, for always wanting to take it that step further. And because Ella lives in the middle of the Free State, or not the middle of the Free State, but she lives in kind of farming community. And so oftentimes what we take for granted in a city or in a built up area, is very different for someone in that area. And Ella is actually working with drones and developing what she's doing there. So I love having Ella on these calls. So thank you, Ella, always for participating. I'm aware of time, but I really wanted to touch on something you touched on earlier on, Susan, and that's around that kind of public perception that drones are used for spying. And obviously we've had a whole lot of, kind of stuff in the press, from recent incidents in the US and what have you. But from a South African perspective, we have something that's going to be regulated, I think from the 1st of June, it's actually coming into play, which is called PAPIA, which is basically the Protection of Personal Information Act. And so that's a key thing. And my question to you is, when you're gathering this information from a US perspective, you're gathering information, footage, images of individuals, maybe in a hostage situation or a search and rescue, well, maybe not search and rescue, but let's say where something might end up in a prosecution, where information is used as evidence. What do you have to consider as a drone operator to be able to ensure that this footage is actually usable and permissible in court in the US? Because we have some challenges here that we need to overcome. So right. I'll be interested in your view from what you have to deal with there.
Right. Yeah, we definitely have to be very careful. If you're working with SWAT or organized crime or something, basically they need to produce a warrant before you're allowed to. So we could fly over a house and, view it, but you definitely can't stay stationary and stare down into the garden or through the windows or anything without any kind of warrant. So we definitely have to do checks and balances on that. Most of the time, as far as chain of evidence goes, what we would do is, first of all our official flights, all deployments, we automatically push on record. So we record, even if there's nothing to record, we'll just get rid of it at the end, but we record from takeoff to landing, so that we have everything if we need it. And then for the times where it might go to trial for something, then we'll literally take out the memory card and it goes in one of the little police bags and gets sealed and taken into evidence. So the chain of command is pretty, chain of evidence is pretty strict with how that gets taken. So yeah, the two things, making sure that, take the card out and literally hand it in. And then the other is making sure that there are warrants that are done. Now, we don't have to physically see the warrant because we work under the department. We have to, each city department has their own rules. So for instance, our police have decided that the commander in charge of each division has to give an okay. So as long as we get a call from the commander saying you're good to go, we will trust that they've got all their paperwork sorted out and we'll fly.
Yeah, we still have to always double check that in South Africa. We've done some work with SAPS. We're like, are you sure? You sure you signed that document? I'm joking. I'm not. No. But that's very interesting. You talk about taking the SD card out and getting it sealed in a bag, because or in a police whatever they use to seal evidence in. Because from a PAPIA perspective now in South Africa going forward, and this was always the case with CCTV camera footage anyway, but now from a drone perspective, it's going to be the case that you're going to have to prove that your drone footage, if it is going to be used in court, hasn't been edited, hasn't been tampered with, and we're going to have to prove how it's transferred from the drone, i.e. the SD card, to whichever medium. Because if we had to hand over an SD card, it just would go missing. So we still are writing policies, or at least not policies, we've got a policy, but a procedure. Because so who do you give it to? What I mean?
It is tricky. We've done it two ways. So we will either give it to the commander on scene, so they will literally come over, they see you take it out of your aircraft and put it in, so they can sign, legally say it wasn't edited. And the other way is my emergency manager, who's my flight partner. He's in an official capacity in the city, and so he can literally take it in an evidence bag, and then he checks it into evidence at the police station. So we've done it both ways, and that because he's an official employee, that's kind of follows the chain of evidence. But definitely I could see why you could have some issues with things going missing. I suspect that's not a new thing with in every country with evidence going missing. That's not just with drone cards. So
no, absolutely. And it's just so like this incident we had on the weekend with thermal, you can't do facial recognition, right? I mean, and also in that instance, the drone crew flew quite high, because it's quite it's not a dangerous area. It's wide open spaces, but it's very hilly. And also just to get the best view, and the highest would obviously come from flying higher, so that they could orientate themselves. So you can see an individual, but you'd never be able to identify that actual individual. So you'll have proof of the fact that the arrest was clean, and there was an individual there, and it would be time stamped obviously and geotagged, but there wouldn't be an issue around personal identification, because it's thermal, right? So there's just a black image. And do you guys use for night missions, do you use thermal patches or anything like that to differentiate the first responders or the emergency teams from the person you're trying to save, or person you're trying to arrest, or whatever it is?
No, we don't tend to, and we've never had an issue with that. I could see why that would be positive, but what we tend to, we have more of we follow the process, and that hasn't caused issues. So we'll normally fly slightly ahead of the group, and first responder searchers will tend to stay in a group. So you'll have K9 with the people, and they'll spread out in a kind of the grid pattern search they'll typically do. And so, no, we normally haven't had a problem, because we can visually just see who are part of our team, but based on how they're moving and everything. And then, of course, if you have search where, the whole neighborhood's gone out to search, then you lose that ability anyway to tag people. But no, that's not a bad idea if people are struggling with that.
Yeah, no, we're implementing that now. So
that's great.
It's quite simple technology. It's cheap as well.
No, that's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I'd love to share with you once we've got some footage of it.
I'd love it. Yeah.
Susan, this was so incredible. I loved hearing your applications and what you're doing, and your different use cases, and also your tips on training. We'd love to chat with you again. This was so cool, and thanks to everyone for joining. Susan, if you're ever back in South Africa, please reach out. I'd love to meet you.
Oh, I would too. That sounds fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've just missed each other by a few weeks, I think.
No, that sounds fantastic. Excellent. Thanks so much for having me on. I've had such a great time.
No, that's brilliant. I've absolutely loved it. For everyone on the chat, I have actually put Susan's LinkedIn profile link in the chat. So do connect with her. She's done way more cool stuff than she's even chatted about here. So there's much more to her than we've even managed to get out of the hour. So thank you so, so much. For everyone here, as you know, this is a weekly drone date, and please make sure you bring a buddy next time. Next week, we have Dr. Lumka Maneli on. She's actually on our chat tonight. She's just somewhere where she can't chat because it's a bit noisy in the background. But she's going to be talking to us about our aviation medicals that we need to have done in operations in the drone space. When you become a pilot, you have to have a medical, and Dr. Maneli's going to, or Dr. Lumka is going to talk to us all about that. So that should be an interesting chat as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Keep safe, keep flying, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.